Greetings from the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you spend a cozy evening with your loved ones. We appreciate your consistent support of the channel. We will hear a fascinating story in today's lecture. Mother and Wife is the name of it. I hope you find some time to unwind after reading the story. Now, let's examine the story's primary content. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. When the sun has just risen, Mrs. Tram, a petite woman with bright eyes, enters the kitchen slowly, removes her shirt, opens the pressure cooker lid, and, still gasping for air, removes a bowl of chicken soup. She has been preparing this easy dish for a long time, now, though. It's not just breakfast, her ailing husband also needs medication. Due to a protracted illness, Mr. Tone, who was once the family's rock, is now weaker than ever. The husband and wife could live comfortably with their daughter at 50, but they are struggling in life. Mrs. Tram's anxiety increases as the illness continues to nag at her door. Mr. Tone appears somewhat better this morning after waking up during the night to call the nurse to tend to him. The glass table in the center of the living room has the bowl of porridge carefully set on it. "Mr. Tone, let's have breakfast, or let me bring it to you," Mrs. Tram calls loudly as she turns to face the bedroom. Mr. Tone's voice slowly responds. "No, leave it there, I'll eat it myself," after a faint horn sounds from the room. Again, "What kind of food is porridge?" Mrs. Tram shuts her mouth and responds, "He's sick, and the only food that's easy to eat is porridge." Mr. Tone laughs, shakes his head, and slowly leaves. "I'm sick, not sick," he says. "You simply let me eat porridge indefinitely." Still unable to alter the food, I went to the restroom. Mrs. Tram was worried about Mr. Tone and woke up slowly in the morning after hearing that joke, but she only got a few words of blame. Because she was so uncomfortable, she just sighed deeply, grabbed the hair dryer, and hurried down to the kitchen, leaving Mr. Tone seated in the back. Mr. Tone merely grinned as he looked at Mrs. Tram. He knew his wife better than anyone, and after more than 15 years of marriage, her temperament remained constant. Despite this, he felt warm and appreciated the silent sacrifices she made on every challenging day. When Mr. Tone was a young boy, he lived with an uncle, grew up to work to support himself, and met Mrs. Tram in Nam Ninh. Mrs. Tram was in a peculiar situation, so the two of them felt a lot of love and sympathy for one another. They made the decision to become a couple, two white hands, for hands only, when their love was at its height. The two husbands continued to work in the economy, and after many years of hard work. Mr. Tone was just sad when the husband had a daughter and there was no more AI. Ha, now 25, is now employed as a tailor for a private workshop close to his home. He constantly pictured his wife, Mrs. Tram, as a loser who hasn't spent all of her money yet, with a bank savings account and a plot of land in the ideal location, ready for a highway project to be completed. The greatest loss, however, was that Mrs. Tram married but was unhappy with her choice. Following the birth of Ha, Mr. Tone started to learn that he had a rare illness that was causing them evil and destruction. He was initially quite depressed just because of that emotion. Mrs. Tram was also deeply depressed, but she tried to console her husband because she knew that a husband's day would never end. "We have a child together, which is also regarded as a blessing from our husband, so stop thinking about it," she said. "I won't be because of that common occurrence if you don't have a child." "Where did you go, though?" Mr. Tone was so moved that he gave his wife a big hug and exclaimed, "That's all," expressing his deep affection for Thuy Trung. However, Mrs. Tram was also deeply depressed on the inside. In actuality, AI and humans lack the drive for happiness and are obviously forced to live in the mirror like aliens, that is, to merely gaze, in addition to being incapable of solving any problems. Even though it's midnight and only 6.30 on the news, there are nights when Mr. Tone's blood is still boiling hot. What can you do? For many years, the fire was only warm in his heart because he had a number of sincere conversations with Mrs. Ni about letting her go out and enjoy herself if needed. However, it's possible that at the time, he was concerned about making a mess of making a pile of rice. It feels like the mountain fire is about to blow up right now, and then there's a lot of rage, and then the ground breaks and there's a funeral. When I went to get my nails done outside the store that afternoon, Mrs. Tram, who was 60 years old and even had a 60-year-old grandchild, heard the phone talk about a service that is very popular right now, the pilot service. At first, Mrs. Tram didn't understand anything. Even laughing and thinking that the pilot's training was correct, but why did he use the word nail, like nailing a duck? But after sitting for a while, she listened to her a few times, and one day, she became even more excited when she saw a bearded woman with a handsome, gay-looking man. What's the matter with you? Maybe it's because she continues to work in the fields despite her advanced age. She put a piece of water on her face and smiled the other day. Fortunately, her mouth was covered by a mask. She asked with a happy expression after more than a minute had passed. Are you joking or are you serious? Maybe it's the new dress and hairstyle that make her appear so innocent, but she is ignorant of contemporary idioms. Are you making fun of me? I'm not sure. I asked you just now. You never stopped grinning, which made me fear death. I'm going to slowly stop talking so I can tell you the whole story now that the girl's name is on her face. The majority of the women here are married, she added. Married people are dead for a long time. Which woman has wealth once more? The age of rejuvenation is actually rather long. She simply gave that kind of nod. Oh, I see, they are a husband and wife couple. I also have a husband. I'm not sure if I'm content, thus, I stopped asking. Naturally, I couldn't tell from her story whether she had more cucumber, salt, or fish. Why now? Her body was as hot as coal in the furnace. She realized, I had to find out more about this service in this way. Mrs. Tram agreed. She hasn't slept at night since that day. Her words haunted Mrs. Tram as well. The young girl added that when her mother was around, she became increasingly irate. Her husband occasionally snored. She inhaled deeply before passing out. She had just turned 50. I'm as bored as an 80-year-old man. Mrs. Nye prepared a bowl of porridge, which Mr. Tone consumed more than half of. After carrying it to the kitchen, he looked into the bathroom and noticed that there was electricity there. Mrs. Nye emerged a few seconds later. Mrs. Nye made a fresh outfit today. He was too busy to go to the closet and retrieve the paper. With regret, Mr. Tone glanced at his wife. I'm sorry he was so young. Went by in a wasteful manner. Perhaps he could only give his wife a kiss in the room now that he was gazing at her with joy. There was nothing else he could see. In the past, people used to say morning, night, afternoon, and noon. The old and the young are now called, however, you can still do it if you're young and old. This time, a clear water buffalo is the only remaining talent. Please, my wife is stunning, I'm content just looking at her. He opened his eyes to the outside world once more. He intended to pose a question to his spouse. First to speak was Mrs. Tram. Dear, Mrs. Kwa and I are scheduled to visit the pagoda today. You are having trouble eating porridge this afternoon. That pot has a lot left in it. He also doesn't return for lunch this afternoon. I leave at the start of the afternoon and return, Mr. Tone grinned. All right, you can leave, I'll go get it myself. AI transports you, or you hail a cab. Mrs. Tram opened her bag and took out the black glasses. Place it on her lap. It's also unclear. I placed the bag beside Mrs. Kwa. Then count the number of her there. It's close, anyway, there are just over 10 kilometers to the pagoda. How many of you are there? Hurry, I'm leaving. Mrs. Tram walked away slowly, the sound of high heels hitting the floor. As if awakening Mr. Tone's emotions. However, what should be done to awaken the heart? It feels like you're sleeping indefinitely and never waking up. Mr. Tone turned to face his spouse. Until a ditch claimed her life. He was just resting in bed. He was a very easygoing individual. Mrs. Tram visited the temples frequently as well. In this neighborhood with a few friends, in addition to a few lines. When the women get excited, they simply leave. The term Buddha has been used extensively for many years, as much as people have comprehended. Lost in the word's unadulterated meaning. Simply proceed to the pagoda, a paper is there, verify that the Buddha can be referred to as the three jewels. They don't realize how easily they understand it. Finding out is the first step, search for objects. Dad simply visited the temple. The temple is not frequented. Buddha is there if there is love. Where else might I look? I have the Buddha in my heart. However, I'm constantly searching for it. When Mrs. Tram visited the location, none of her appeared to me. In the house, I just noticed, one of her sons is a boy. And Ha is his wife. Drinking water while seated, it looks like they're fighting or something. She appears quite tense. She entered the yard slowly, she covered the walls back. Then my voice came to me. You simply use that staircase. I advised her to be aware going forward. All I have to do is watch her go with that guy once more. Don't blame me for it, then, I do not hold up my hand. There are divisions in the order. You simply go out and listen to rumors, then cover your wife's head with it all. I told you, too. If you wish to expel me, I'll go get you. I find the scene boring as well. This is how my husband chastised me every day, louder, Tu said. You still fight. How can smoke exist if there isn't a fire? What else is my aunt? She used to tell people when I brought her home, she claimed that her eyes resembled those of women. There was no violence. I fell in love because I was so in love at the time, I believe it to be too true now. That's how she heard the rumors. Not very much, I am aware of this article's primary point. She was speaking loudly to him. Koan Tai then took over, observing her appearance. Together, the husband and wife ought to remain silent. Ha got out of the seat, gave voice to Mrs. Tram. Tu was furious. However, I saw a friend of my mother, I therefore changed my appearance. Mrs. Tram grinned. This guy kissed like that when he was upset, however, he abruptly changed his tone. It's accurate. She said, stand for 10 seconds, so, where is your mom? She has not yet arrived here. My mom and the other girl did indeed go ahead. I must now go there as well, my mother advised me to either get intoxicated or take a cab. My motorcycle ride to pick her up. Mrs. Tram eventually agreed and nodded, Tu went on. Sitting here, you sip water. Put on your clothes and wait for me for 5 minutes, I went to speak. Tu talked and then went to bed. Getting ready to dress up, warming up a cup of tea, he took it. Mrs. Tram sipped. She then surveyed the house. When she saw the happy couple's wedding photo, her gaze paused. Take a look at the powerful, tall figure. Once more, formerly received training in a military setting. For 2 years. Prior to getting married to Ha, Mrs. Tram pondered. Ha, what else would you like? She went outside as well. You're not sure, it would be good if Mr. Tone dared to act in such a manner. She no longer needs to bring a great deal of sadness into her heart. I'm not sure how to share this with anyone, then she had another thought. However, from where did I obtain the title? She is also the villain's daughter. Considering it, she chuckled uncontrollably. The car departed shortly after. Today, Mrs. Tram was ill, ought to remain motionless. In contrast to the 21-side style. It's not safe to sit like that, turned into a hand. To get to, she had to hold on tight. In the process, she started to send inquiries regarding the event. However, she heard by accident. She wasn't going to ask at first, but make a significant impact. However, you two are as silent as frozen meat. Then bored, too, she said she had been thinking for a while. 2. Your husband got into a fight with you just now. Mrs. Van Qua was actually answered by Tuesday, I have a fiery temper. It is intolerable to me. Mrs. Tram was questioned further, I heard that, too. Her statement is accurate. You must carefully research it, I'm sorry to say it. What do you hope to achieve? I've been listening to conversations for a while. At work, It's a little bit with the manager. I didn't believe it either at first. However, yesterday afternoon, one of my colleagues witnessed it firsthand, from inside the house, observed them all together. He didn't have time to get the phone out at that moment. I can't say everything. I can't say everything. I can't get the story out of my head. Nobody takes notice of anything, everything is an accident. Right up until Mrs. Tram recalled. It's not a car, I'm sitting in one, what I just held, then. It isn't a number at all. Even if it is only a brief moment, however, the response to the query. 2 was mine. Myself is unrelated to me, she hurried over to face her. She let out a sigh. She had a red face. I apologize, Tuesday. It's all right. With a smile, 2 posed a query, how are you? Are you improving? I inquired about my spouse. She looked down at it. She let out a sigh, it doesn't help, I see. That has been the case for years. Western medicine, it never changes. 2 also said. His strength is ebbing away, his father is older than he is. His father, however, continues to play basketball. On a bicycle, he works out like a pro. Mrs. Tram gave a nod. She let out a sigh, it's a number. I believe the story is ending. I then posed one more query, it's not strong. But don't forget to look at the previous one. It's fun to be your age now, however, the girl, who appeared to be her lover, recalled something. Since the toilet was a sacred space, she proceeded directly to it, lying away from the soldier and wiping it with her hand. Later, she had to cover the altar mirror with her hands. 3 or 4 other women were waiting for Mrs. Tram in the temple's main hall after she passed. As is customary when the ladies visit this place, they pause after the crowd, turn around, and go outside to observe the scene. About 40 minutes later, as everyone was focusing on the statue of Quan Li that was positioned in the center of the lotus pond, I noticed 2 trembling and pacing. Oh, my mother, you're here and I will always be searching for you. As if she were starving, but with 8 hot meals of her favorite food, Mrs. Tram was also a little happy when she saw Tuesday. You made me think you left me behind, she said, placing her hand in 2's. I was going to get into that car after going out to buy some anti-drug medication. After taking a tour of the temple, everyone told one another to head home in the afternoon. First to drive was the cab. She was very proactive and not in a rush when she and 2 rode their motorcycle. Are you hungry? Asked Tuesday. She and I went to make 8 noodles. I was so furious this afternoon that I was unable to even swallow a grain of rice, Mrs. Tram concurred. Like a couple of courtesans, they both paused in front of a noodle shop and entered together. Near the end of the store, 2 people selected a table. After a little while, 28 noodles were removed. The aroma of cinnamon and herbs was very appealing, and the broth had a rich scent. Particularly considering the ravenous creatures like 2 observed, 2 ate, but she couldn't help but ask because she thought it was funny. After being reprimanded and upset with her wife for skipping meals, she felt compelled to place the blame on her kids. Mrs. Tram then stated, if you eat, but what is there to be upset about? Only a small amount of broth and a tiny bit of green herb remained after 2 finished all the noodles in 8. She smiled as she wiped 2's empty mouth with a piece of paper in her hand, but there was no child to eat. Mrs. Tram was furious, but she must have relished letting go of her resentment toward her mother. She had a deep affection for her. She no longer values this emotion. I feel like I'm getting too much pampering. A notification appeared on 2's phone after he said that. It was Zalo who sent the message. After 2 clicked on it, nobody else saw the message. Mrs. Tram, it was your wife. 2 became increasingly irate after reading the message. I'm going to spend some time at my mother's house. I will return once your outbursts have stopped. And perhaps we will become husband and wife if you continue to act in that manner. Though it's not fate, it is fate. 2's hand slammed into the table in rage. In panic, Mrs. Tram inquired, what's the matter? How come you appear so tense? Mrs. Tram received that message from Tuesday. Mrs. Tram realized the problem's underlying cause after she had completed all those brief sentences. I am motivated, she said. For my part, I believe I simply let my wife go out for a bit. Now I'll be short if I come to get her, thus, I am not dependent on anything. I'll get it back to me. I'm a woman, too, I know I won't be able to go for a while. Her counsel was unexpected. Tu became more and more irate as a result, that sort of thing. It's not something I have to pay for. You must have overlooked the long shirt that Mrs. Tram requested. For Mrs. Tram, that remark was a ray of hope. The first thing that came to mind when she read the message she had sent to Tu was that she would seize the chance to actually experience it and get to know the person who knows me before it was too late. Living to death is also extremely rare at my age. You become a ghost when you pass away if you are unable to accomplish it while you are still alive. I regret that intention, it seems to have been reaffirmed. I had no idea when I arrived. I had no idea when I arrived. I had no idea when I arrived. When I first arrived, I had no idea. I had no idea when I arrived. 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 When I first arrived, I had no idea. I had no idea when I arrived. When I arrived. I had no idea 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 when I arrived. When I first arrived, I had no idea. I had no idea when I arrived. 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 When I arrived. I had no idea when I arrived. When I arrived. When I arrived. I had no idea 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 when I arrived. When I arrived, I had no idea when I arrived. When I arrived. I had no idea when I arrived. When I first arrived, I had no idea. I had no idea when I arrived. I had no idea when I arrived. I had no idea when I arrived. When I first arrived, I had no idea. I had no idea when I arrived. 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 Tram has selected a man to go with her. Following the meal, HB showered behind the well. Perhaps he preferred to do it outside so they could converse in the dimly lit area, even though there was a sink in the kitchen. Hung also owned a more cozy item. To change her clothes, Tram rushed to the bathroom. This dress had been on her all day. Only Tram was aware of a few other things. Tan retired to his bed. She weighed less today than she did last night. She also breathed easier than before. She had to change her clothes in the restroom for nearly 20 minutes. The laundry was still unfinished by Ha and Hung. She rushed over to the sink and listened. When Tram began to listen, Ha's voice said, "Here it is," even though she didn't understand what Hung had said. "Tomorrow, I'll give it to you. The storage room is where it is." "From where are you?" "Your parents are probably sleeping right now. I really do miss you, it is intolerable to me. You're familiar with my daughter. This guy got her from me, the most valuable aspect of a woman." She felt ashamed. She was unable to lie face down. It's true, this man appeared rigid, as though he had taken off his hat. He was tough, though. He was a tough guy, however, life must continue. It's a given now. You can't live with prejudice all the time in today's love. It's okay to eat in front of the camera, but you shouldn't look at it. It's too late once you discover that you're a fake. You can't be like your daughter, she sees things differently than you do, just like Ha. Although they have a slight affection for one another, this does not imply that they are in love. They have no regard for those around them. Hung told Ha everything, but Ha didn't believe it. They eventually arrived at their home and sat down to eat. She didn't regret it when she saw Hung's dejected expression. The windows were covered in glass, as though a man with a heavy load had fallen into it, and the rain got heavier each time. He said that, but he also had to clean up the mess and make his lover's bed in the room. It's been a while since anyone has used this room. Mr. Ton included 4 bedrooms in the design of this house. There are currently 2 rooms remaining in the room where the guests spent the night. Everyone went home to that bed after 10 o'clock. It was really uncomfortable with VO on one side and Hung on the other. If the other wall were composed of straw, that would be fantastic. They would sleep together after Hung broke it. When Mr. Tone said, "Please go to the kitchen and get me a glass of water," Mrs. Tram had just gone to bed at midnight, or around 1 in the morning, after giving it some serious thought. I was suddenly so thirsty that my throat felt dry, as though it had been burned. Despite my sadness, Mrs. Tram had to make an effort. At least she felt bad after spending the afternoon with Tong, and she told her husband that she felt a little bad. "How long have I put up with this? I can no longer win now that I'm older." A woman's low instinct caused her to snooze for an hour, remove her shoes, and leave the room. She was closing her eyes because she was tired, and she had just left the guest room when she noticed someone sitting on the sofa. Mrs. Tram paused to collect herself. In the faint purple light, she recognized it as Hung. Hung also recognized his mother-in-law right away. "Why are you sitting here without sleeping?" Mrs. Tram asked her gently. "Are you unable to sleep at home? 10 or so hours have passed, and you're still awake in the bright light." Hung noticed that Mrs. Tram appeared to be quite carefree and was dressed comfortably for sleeping. She walked down to Hung, shook her mouth and hands, and lowered herself. She was so furious in that room that Hung lay there for a long time, and she was burning all over. Hung simply came out and sat for a while because it was so annoying. He would spend all of his time sleeping in this chair. What's there to burn in that room, she asked herself. She didn't clean up the mess every day, even though AI wasn't sleeping. She said she had to get rid of it. She was aware of the source of that grating rage. She started to glance back at the strategic location. Her gaze paused. This man truly has a very sensible disposition. She didn't finish any missions, in addition to giving her husband the name Ton. She recalled that she needed to bring her husband some water. She neglected to drink. She handed Mr. Ton a cup of water and wiped the washing machine stove. Mrs. Ki Kang uttered a contemplative sentence as she swept across Hung's place. After sitting here, she removed it. Hung blinked abruptly, wondering what it might be. Although Hung dared not consider it, he could not deny that his hands became incapable of handling it once they were seated next to one another. Hung had tears in her eyes. He continued to blink in the direction of Mr. Ton's wife's room. Eventually, perhaps after consuming all the water, Mr. Ton fell asleep. Hung just noticed Mrs. Tram leaving the room covertly at this point. She gestured for Hung by extending her thumb, only a bit. She then instructed Hung to stand in front of her house by waving her hand. "I was too afraid to talk while I was sitting here." In the dim light, I caught the two of them conversing. He was irritated because he misinterpreted the circumstances. Furthermore, it was still pouring rain at this point. He went to Mrs. Tram's tree and said, "If you don't sleep like this, how can you go to work tomorrow?" Despite the fact that there was a pole more than a meter high in front of the house. "It's all right, Uncle," Hung said with a nod. "I still occasionally work as a night cop. I now feel normal when I wake up." Mrs. Tram continued to speak. "Sometimes the sky is bright, and it's really hot." She kept bringing up another subject. "You two decided to get back together, but why?" AI-free life. Standing in the rain at midnight to request my daughter's hand in marriage. We didn't know either, Lainey said with a smile, all we were doing was searching for it. Uncle, it's nothing. This man, in my opinion, has made a huge life mistake, he continued to act like a kid. Nothing exists in this era, she said. In my opinion, Nia Trang is not haunted, Uncle Tram recounted their entire conversation. She heard Hung nod in the middle of the night. Realized that his mother, who would eventually become his wife, was also missing a lot of the discussion. Hung revealed his actual character as well. For an hour, it was just like that. Or people are always more critical. The forbidden story also appeared on that rainy night after it had been evident for 3 days. The future son-in-law cheered up his mother, his future wife, right here in the house by using a little bit of his limited stage experience. Mrs. Tram became extremely happy due to the constant joy. She did, in fact, spend many years alone after leaving the palace. The rain had just stopped the following morning, and that was also when it stopped. In the east, there was some sunshine. Mrs. Tram went inside to the kitchen. To wake up, she will strike for a long time. It will all seem like a dream. She awoke as the moonlight slowly crept through the window. In the soft sunlight, it seemed as though all of the anxieties and concerns of the previous evening had vanished. Beside the wrinkles on his forehead, which appeared to be eliminated by the relaxation, Mrs. Tram was sleeping soundly. Not wanting to wake him, she got up gently and left the room. After the rain, the air outside was cool. Like priceless pearls, the water droplets were frozen on the leaves and flickered in the sunlight. After their conversation last night, Mrs. Tram left the house. Mrs. Tai Hung was still seated on a long chair, dozing off. There was no more rain, but the pillow was still slightly damp. Hung was gently roused by Mrs. Tram's call. The time was morning. When Hung opened his eyes, Mrs. Tram was standing there grinning softly. In an attempt to revive himself, he rubbed his eyes. He said he was sorry to have bothered him last night. Mr. Ni laughed and shook his head. It's nothing, so calm down and don't be scared. The conversation throughout the evening also improved the quality of the air. Mrs. Tram went to make breakfast in the kitchen. The smell of the food filled the house, and it was slightly warm from the stove. After washing his face and getting dressed, Hung entered the kitchen to find Mrs. Tram working hard on making breakfast. Am I able to assist you? Hung motioned for Mrs. Tram to indicate the table and shake her head. Everything is nearly finished, so just take a seat. Before the new day starts, take a brief nap. Hung took a seat at the table and enjoyed the warmth of the room as well as Mrs. Tram's genuine concern. As the breakfast arrived, Hung and Mrs. Tram sat down to eat while discussing their plans for the future. Mrs. Tram occasionally glanced at Hung, recognizing the earnestness and gravity of his statements. Breakfast was over. Hung was prepared to depart after Mrs. Tram finished cleaning up. Mrs. Tram's eyes were earnest as she held Hung's hand before she left. Be careful with Ha, I hope the two of you will be happy together. Emotionally, Hung shook his head. We'll do our best. Mrs. Tram stood at the door and gazed at the morning sun as Hung departed. Knowing that love and sincerity will always be a strong foundation to overcome everything, despite life's many obstacles, made her feel lighter. This concludes our story, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to inform us by leaving a comment. And now, goodbye to all of you. See you in the upcoming episode.